Hi, this is Ken for the Bryant Museum staff today. And a longtime friend of the museum, Roger Shultz, on the line. Roger, how are you today?
Mate, well, I'm doing wonderful in this COVID world that we live in. Just kind of everybody's kind of sequestered and at the house. And I'm just so glad you reached out to me and we could use technology.
Yeah, so how many days have you been at home?
March the 14th. So I don't even know. A month. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So I told him if I'm here much longer, I'm going to have third cut. About all the yard work I can do and started doing the neighbor yard work. So,
well, why don't you come on down to Mobile? I got some yard work for you to do.
So tell folks where you are now and what you do as we start today.
Yeah. Well, I'm living down in Mobile, Alabama. I came down here. I moved here from Enterprise probably 2009, and I work for a company called Republic Services, and I call on municipalities to kind of do their residential trash service. So I cover the South Alabama and the Panhandle of Florida and the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So that's my territory, and I've been here about 4 years now, so it's really enjoying that.
And I know you've done a lot of radio and TV. You did a radio interview already today, haven't you? I mean, you've been.
Yeah. How did you know that? You've been spying
Facebook. Facebook.
Yeah. I did a couple of them. Well, it's a kind of a sad note why I've got to do them is I actually coached Travaris Jackson in high school, who was he went to Alabama State and played for the Minnesota Vikings, and he passed away a couple of days ago in a car accident. And so we've kind of just been talking about him and kind of the impact it's seeing him as a 10th grader and just how wonderful he was and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I've kind of got brought up a little bit these last few days.
Yeah. So that's a tragedy when those things happen. Alabama fans are no strangers to those tragedies.
Right.
One comes to mind is to me is Kevin Turner.
Yeah. Well, and Kevin was a teammate of mine. He was a year under me. Obviously, we were real tight, and and of course, Kerry Good is now going through the same thing with ALS and all that stuff, and it is difficult. And another guy that I play football with, Willie White, who has some kind of a rare form of MS. We kind of got together, and Kurt Jarvis kind of headed up the effort to raise money to get him a van so he could at least travel around and go to his doctor's appointments and stuff like that, and kind of see his kids. So. Yeah, it's not far from home for sure. So I'll be blessed.
I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember when we first met?
In 1986, and we were at the all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet at Trey Yin.
I was a tutor in the athletic department, and you were in a geology class. So how was your geology tutor? You didn't need it. Some of the other guys needed me a little bit more than you.
You know what? Yeah, what's so funny about that? So we had a lab with that class, and so the lab met, and there was literally like nothing but football players in this class, except for maybe like two just girls, just regular students. And I remember we got in there, and me and Billy Ray, so like they had all the rocks on a little card, little card on a rock. So we went by and we could identify all the rock. We're about the only ones that could. So what we did is we wrote the name of the rock underneath the rock. So when they passed it, they could pick it up and look and see what the name of the rock was. Well, we had this girl in the class, and when she got it, she would erase it. And so everybody after her, boy, I think there was a couple of guys that got a little upset with her, but she was a very attractive girl. So it wasn't too bad, but I'll never forget that. Rocks for jocks, but it was a good class. Dr. Hooks taught that class.
Yeah, he lives not too far from me, so I see him every once in a while. He's still hanging around. He's still with us.
Yeah, he was always kind of an in-shape guy.
Yeah, he's a character. Billy Ray, I remember him. He was always limping or hurt. God bless him. He was taking a licking, wasn't he?
Yeah. And he had asthma, and he tried to, it was tough. But he went on, had some pretty good success, ended up transferring to Duke and playing for Spurrier and, had some success.
Well, yeah, you played with a lot of quarterbacks.
Well, it's funny. I get asked that all the time. And I told this to A.J. McCarron. When A.J. McCarron was a freshman, I came up to a spring practice, and I came up with his dad, and we're eating at Baumhauer's or something. And I can remember looking at him. I said, look, man, because he hadn't started yet. And I said, look, it's going to be important. Everybody that plays when you start quarterback, that's how we're referenced, right? Like people will know, they know that I played at Alabama, but they'll always ask me, well, who was your quarterback? And you'll go, well, Gary Hollingsworth, pretty much. So I'm attached to Gary Hollingsworth. And I said, that's how most people, when you play football at the University of Alabama, you're kind of attached to the quarterback, whether you want to or not. That's kind of, because somebody will go, when did you play? And you go, I played 2006 and 2000. Well, who's your quarterback? Oh, Brody Croyle. And they go, oh, right. So they kind of relate when you played. So, but it's always going to go back to – I have to remember telling that to A.J. McCarron one time, and that's before he ever started and had such great success. And, but he obviously had a really great career. So.
Yeah, so it's such a competition all the time. I think that people don't realize that sometimes that, the depth chart and where you are, I mean, that's every day for a player. I mean, you have to worry about that every day. And once you get there, you got to stay there. So – yeah,
yeah, and it's funny. It's funny you say that. So I got a guy I play football with, Joe Demos, and I know you know Joe.
Yeah.
And Joe has a picture. He has a picture of because Zuga, who was my roommate, one of my best friends, passed away last June, and so he has a picture of the depth chart of the spring of '89, and all the starters. I'm the only guy that's on that starting lineup that started in '89. Because the rest of them, and I was at left guard. I wasn't even at center. So it's so funny to look at. You talk about that depth chart and being competitive, and every day is a thing, and it's always in motion. But if you look at that depth chart from that day when he took that picture, and I think it was like April. It was like April the 14th. It was about this time in 1989, and Zuga was the starting center. Demos was the right guard, and I was the left guard. And I think Scott Bolt was one of the tackles, and I can't remember who the right tackle was. But when the season started, it was Strickland, Robinette, me, Trent Patterson, and then of course Terrell Chapman. Terrell Chapman was the right tackle, but he was a starter. But it's kind of interesting, like you said. It's a battle all the time, and that's kind of what's made Alabama. That's what's made Alabama so good is, man, they have to compete every day in practice. The guys they compete against in practice are going to be a lot tougher than the guys they have to go up against Saturday, and that's why Alabama's had such great success. And Saban instills that in those guys, being competitive every day, competing every day.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. You're competing with your friends. I mean, it's your roommate, folks you hang out with.
Well, it's funny you say that because Zuga and I were roommates, and we were, on the depth. He was at the starting center. I was a guard. He got hurt, and then I ended up starting at center. And then I never, relinquished the position. He ended up being, second string center, and we're best friends, and it's kind of weird. And then we slept in the same room together and all that. And it's kind of funny how because I thought back about that when he passed away and how that was and what a great person he was to, still continue on with our relationship and our friendship and our deep friendship, even when we were competing for a position. So it's kind of weird, but it bonds you.
Yeah, it really does. And they say in the trenches, that really does mean something to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It means a lot to me, besides my radio show. And by the way, Ron Franklin trademarked it, so I can't ever use it. So thank you, Ron Franklin, for doing that. But no, it is. It's just something about a group of linemen that just kind of the bond that we have. And it's funny because we're doing this on Zoom. I put the Zoom app on my phone yesterday, and I basically Zoomed with a bunch of guys from my signing class. Robinette, Danny Cashley, Osmond, David Lenore, Johnny Howard jumped in. So it was kind of funny how we used Zoom yesterday to talk, and it was, boy, it's a good thing you didn't tape that. It was a bunch of lies. I'm telling you, a bunch of lies.
Yeah, sometimes some truth will come out in some of those. It's great. I bet the best thing was the laughter.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. And then it gets going downhill. It goes downhill pretty quick. It doesn't stay at a high level long, and then it just goes right downhill.
Well, let's talk about your football career a little bit. Who was the main recruiter from Alabama that was talking to you when you first made contact with the university?
It was, oh my gosh, Steve. He was only, I can't believe I've forgotten already. Oh my gosh.
Put you on the spot.
Well, it was, no, he was Steve Walters, Coach Walters. He was a a defensive back coach in the NFL. Coach Perkins brought him in. I'm the only kid he signed in 23 years of coaching football because he was in the NFL. He came to Alabama. He signed me out of Atlanta. He wasn't the recruiter for Billy Ray. Coach Perkins was, but Steve Walters was his name. And as soon as he signed, he went right back to the NFL. He ended up being an NFL coach, a defensive back coach for a long time in the NFL. He finally retired. And I would see him periodically down here in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And he goes, you're the only guy I signed. And I said, yeah. I said, you did great. You're batting 1,000, man. You did wonderful. But it was Steve Walters who recruited and signed me. And it's funny too, because I can remember getting recruited because my son now he's going to be a high school senior and he's a prospect and he's getting recruited. And so I get asked a lot about, kind of comparing them, and there's really no comparison, but I can remember being it. So Billy Ray was the hot quarterback and he's in our rival high school. And actually our high schools are combined now, but everybody wanted Billy Ray. And I can remember going to one of his first football games, and Coach Perkins was there in person watching his game, and he was in line at the concession stand, and I got behind him. And all my teammates are like going, Shultz, trying to – I was like, y'all shut up, man. Don't get But it's funny. And that was in September. And then, a couple months later, he offers me a scholarship, which was kind of surprising. And that was unexpected. It wasn't – I was in – to come watch that game. But it's interesting how it changed. But Coach Walters was my coach. And I played for, Perkins, and I played for 3 head coaches, Perkins, Curry, and Stallings. So,
yeah, you got a little bit of perspective there that most people have. Kind of compare and contrast those 3 guys for us a little bit.
Well, it's obviously I love Coach Perkins because he gave me an opportunity to be a part of the Alabama family, and he was gone after, the fall semester. And then Coach Curry came in and, I think the world of Coach Curry, and I'm going to be attached to Coach Curry no matter. I was here the whole time he was there, and I consider myself kind of a team leader, but then he decided that he wanted to move on and go do something else, and he ended up going to Kentucky. And then we got Coach Stallings, who I have a real strong relationship with Coach Stallings still, and have an opportunity to see him probably once or twice a year. And I just, I love all my coaches for all different reasons. I love, Curry was a center, and he was able to impart some wisdom to me about playing the center position. And then, of course, Coach Stallings coming in and kind of stabilizing the program and taking it to the next level. And, of course, Coach Stallings gave me an opportunity to be a GA, and I was a GA for 2 years and won the national championship in '92. So that was pretty awesome. I have a pretty good relationship with all the coaches, that I played under and played for. I had a ton of offensive line coaches, so.
Yeah, run through some of those offensive line coaches.
All right. Well, it started off with Coach Henshaw. Coach Henshaw and Coach Fuller. And I think Coach Fuller had the guards and the centers and the guards at that time, and Henshaw had the tackles. And then Henshaw left and went to Tampa Bay with Coach Perkins, and then it was Coach Mac McWhorter. And so Mac ended up coaching the centers and the guards, and Fuller coached the tackles. And that stayed that way until he left. And then Coach Rick Rhodes, came in to coach tackles, and Fuller was centers and guards. And Rick Rhodes, was the head coach. He just won the national championship at Troy when he joined us. And then, of course, they all left after '89. And then we had Coach Solari, who's still coaching in the he came from the NFL and stayed with us a couple years, and then ended up going back into the NFL, and he's been there ever since. And so I had quite a few offensive line coaches, to say the least.
And you worked with Homer Smith too, didn't you? When he offensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah. Well, we all love Homer. We all love Homer. And it's Homer came back with Coach Stallings at one point in time too, And but no, we love Homer. We loved everything about Homer and how he ran the offense and did everything, and just the way he was as a person, as a football mind. And I just feel blessed and honored because it kind of, like when I tell people that I played for Homer Smith, just the football people, it's amazing how well respected he is amongst the football guys. And, the fact that you played for a guy like that, it's pretty impressive. It's kind of neat. And glad I had that honor of playing for him and knowing him and being around him and all that. And I remember he had his 70th birthday party. We all had to write letters, and wrote a letter, and his daughter wrote me back and said, man, everybody got a kick out of that letter he wrote. because, he used to do this thing where he used to lay down and look up and make sure the ball was at a 45-degree angle. Well, I can tell you this, when you're looking to see if the ball's at a 45-degree angle from a center, you ain't really staring at a whole lot of good things, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, but oh man, I love Homer. Homer was great, and we're glad that I had an opportunity to be around him.
Yeah, he's a special guy. He wrote books, had master's in theology degree, so he wasn't your typical coach in some ways.
No, and it's funny because I went back and I started reading his playbook. Detail and the overthinking that went into the playbook is really unbelievable. How every position has a letter. I mean, you can't remember all that crap, but it's really unbelievable how thoughtful he was with that and what he did with that. I mean, it's really amazing.
And I know I've heard you talk about this before, but as a center, you're making some of the calls for the line. But you have a lot of responsibility. People think about the quarterback, being the leader and calling plays. But tell people what the center's responsibility is communicating with the other linemen.
Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to come. We had to identify the defense, odd, even. Basically, if I'm covered, it's odd defense, and if I'm not covered, it's even. And then just go from there and number out and make the calls. Like if we're running, depending if you're running a sweep to the play side, what kind of block I'm going to do with the guard, and then that triculates out, right? Because whatever communication I have with either the play side guard or the backside guard, communicating pass protection, identifying the mic, making sure the protection's turned to the correct, the correct way, and it's really, you got to know what you're doing. Now, all that being said, the quarterback can't override it, but he didn't do it much, but no, it's an interesting process to come out there and make sure you identify everything, and just because at the end of the day, this is what we always said. Look, I could be wrong, but if we're all wrong together, we're right. Does that make sense? As long as we're on the same page, even if I made the wrong call, we did something wrong. But if we're all on the same page, we're going to be all right. But if we're on the wrong page, it's not a very good thing. I'll never forget, we were playing up in Tennessee one time, and it was loud. And so we were going to run a counter trade to the right. And I think Gary checked or Gary didn't check. I don't know. But the guard and the tackle from the left pulled, the guard and the tackle from the right pulled, and they all met behind me. And believe it or not, that was the longest gaining play we had that day. So we all screwed up, and literally all five linemen are just cornhole, and we're just hitting each other, And I don't, and it was just funny. And then I guess that confused the defense, and that was one of the longest plays we had that day. But you got to be on the same page, and obviously it was loud at the Neyland Stadium. It was
maybe need to put that in the playbook for the future. So.
That's what I thought. I thought, man, it's very deceptive. Just look like we don't know what we're doing, and it works.
And speaking of Neyland Stadium, how much are the taxes now that you have to pay?
Well, if they keep adding on to the stadium, we got to pay, because the fewer fans show up, the more taxes we have to pay. So we're paying a lot right now. We're paying a lot right now. But it's, it's so funny because that thing will pop up, every year, they bring that up, and it's kind of a neat thing it's great to be known for that. And, because everybody always asks me, what was your motivation for that? It was because Lee Corso was kind of jabbing us and basically said we were like in high school offensive line. And I don't know, that just kind of stuck with my head. And I guess I must have been taking an accounting class at that time and learned something about taxes, because I actually said it and did it right. I don't know. I still don't know much about taxes, and I was terrible in accounting. But it must have. But it all worked out. It was great because the heat of the moment, stuff comes out, and Ray Malick, I think he's the one that caught. I told it to him, and it was funny because on Facebook they kind of got into a debate whether it was told with a group of reporters or just to Ray. And I really think I just said it to Ray, and then Ray wrote I think I remember that, right? I don't remember, man, but it was, who knows? But it's funny, and it's got life, and it's, I did a radio show in Tennessee the year that Peyton Manning beat us, you know, it's the first time they'd beaten us in 8 years or something like that. I was doing a TV show, radio show in Tennessee, and man, they were lighting me up, man. I said, well, we've won 8 in a row. I didn't lose to you. So, no, I mean, you can say what you want to say. That's because that's when I said that. You know, Coach Stallings is the one that said, hey, man, that was funny. But, man, we got to play those guys next year. I go, Coach, I don't. Good luck. So, but.
Yeah, and you were kind of a go-to guy. I mean, they don't let them talk to the media as much, but, you know, you had lots of media contacts, and it's kind of a different world on how they handled it back then when you were playing.
Oh man, it's way different. I mean, yeah, it's. But I don't know. You know, the newspaper was obviously big. There was no internet. There wasn't anything, so it's always important. And I trusted all of those reporters. They never, maybe if I said something out of context, they never really threw me under the bus, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? They were always. It felt like we were a team together. You know, I mean, I'm giving them information and stories, and they were able to write it, and they portrayed it in a good way. And it wasn't like they were trying to dig for something or come up with something. And they didn't try to goat you into, you know, saying something bad about the opponent or whatever. You know, it was always, I had a good working relationship with the media and the people at that time for sure. Even on TV, you know, Matt Coulter was one of the first guys, and then Rick Carley came along. And so I had a good relationship with all those guys. And Mike Dubberly at the time he was down in Tuscaloosa. It was 33. I don't know. It's like 33-40 now, but it was 33. You know, Mike Dubberly was there, you know, for a long time. So I had a good relationship with those guys. And, you know, it was, I guess I gave them what they needed, and they gave me what I needed. It was a little exposure because, Lord, I needed it.
Well, you've done a lot of radio and TV since then. Tell folks about we'll start with your game show experience.
Yeah.
Can you tell them that?
Are you talking about when I was on The Price is Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went on The Price is Right. It was like, you know, that's always something I've always wanted to do. And when we got married, my wife was like, for one of our anniversary gifts was like, hey, look, we're going to go to California and see if we can get on The Price is Right. Got me tickets and went out there, and I had tickets for 4 shows, and they filmed 2 shows in one day. And I didn't go to the first show because I saw kind of a fat guy. At the time, I was about almost 400 pounds. And I saw this big fat guy with a, you know, sequence shirt on. I was like, man, they'll probably pick that guy. Let's not go to that group. So we didn't try out for the show 1, but show 2 came along, and we said, let's go to that one. And how The Price is Right works is literally everybody that's in the audience goes in front of the producers. So you walk in, and they take you in groups of 10. You get in front of the producer, and then I guess from there they decide kind of how they want to get the show. And then I was literally the last, you know, person picked. And I thought, oh man, I went waste all this time. I mean, the last person picked never gets up to play a game. But luckily, I got up there and played a game, and I just had to guess the price of a TV. It's down to 2 answers, and just like I did my test in school, I picked the wrong one. I can always get it down to 2, and I picked the wrong one. But man, I had a wonderful experience. You know, being on The Price is Right, and it was with Bob Barker and the Barker's Beauties, and let me tell you something, those beauties were beauties. 2 of them were Playmate models. Just saying, just wasn't bad to look at.
And then you got another longer-term TV engagement. Tell them about your with NBC.
Yeah, I had an opportunity. Well, you know, reality TV started coming along. You know, there was Survivor and The Amazing Race, and then all of a sudden there was a show called The Biggest Loser. And, you know, at first I'm like, man, you know, I played at Alabama. I ain't know nothing about me's a loser. You know, I ain't going to, you know, but I kind of watched the show, and I kind of came intrigued by it. So I auditioned for it. If it's a 6-step process, I probably went 2 of the steps the first time I auditioned. Then I didn't make it. Then I went back and auditioned for season 4. And I probably made it 4 steps that time. And then I kind of was giving up hope. I actually tried out in between those times, I went and auditioned for The Apprentice with Donald Trump. This is kind of funny. So I'll go down to Jacksonville, and I do it. And I get a call from, you know, Trump's producer, and they go, man, hey, they really like you, but Trump thinks you're too fat. And I said, well, I kind of am, but that's okay. But I always, you know, it was kind of interesting that I was down to like the last almost, that's when they didn't have celebrity, you know, they just had regular folks being the apprentice. So I was close to being on that show, but Trump trumped me. And but so about that time, Biggest Loser calls me back and it's like, hey man, are you still interested in, you know, being on the show? And I go, well, I'm still fat. And then what was interesting about it, they go, hey, do you have, you know, somebody you can team up with? And I thought, oh my God. I thought, well, I can't, my wife's not fat at all. You know, she's 127 pounds. I don't think she's going to qualify. But they go, no, you got any old guys you used to play ball with? It's heavy. I go, well, shoot, all of them. Which one you want? So, and so I ended up calling Trent. And so it ended up working out pretty good. And Trent and I got on the show. So it was a great experience, wonderful experience.
Now, how did those workouts compare to being a player at Alabama?
Well, I definitely being a player at Alabama and being through lower gym and all the stuff I went through and being a Division I athlete obviously prepared me mentally for what was going to happen. So I think that was one of my advantages on the show, is just have my mental makeup and surviving that. But the workouts were they weren't as intense as the ones at Alabama. I mean, there's just nothing compared to going to lower gym and trying to survive that mess, the mental anguish and the torture and all that you have to go through. But they were longer workout. I mean, we worked out all day and we ate right, and you know, it was the thing. So it wasn't. And as I got in better shape, obviously, the easier it became. But I mean, it's hard when you're almost 400 pounds trying to run up a hill and do all that mess. But everybody always asks me, how's it compared to Alabama? And it's not even. I mean, my gosh, it wasn't even close. I mean, Alabama was tough, but Alabama's part of it too was the mental part. But that's the same thing with Biggest Losers, the mental part of it. Guys that made it were mentally strong, and I realized if I just keep working, the key is just losing weight. You're going to stay around. I didn't have to worry about the social game, so to speak. You just keep losing weight, and you're going to be safe. And that's just what I focused on. Toughest part was being away from my wife and kid. That was the hardest part.
Yeah. How long did that take?
I left October. I left like October the 14th, and they took us right from there and filmed it. That was when they flew me out, it was still auditioning, and then they cast the show, and then we went straight out to the ranch. And so I was at the ranch until March the 5th. So October the 14th to March the 5th, and then came home for 6 weeks, and then we had the finale. So I had some at-home time but the filming of the show was already complete. You know, it was complete. So I made it all the way to the end. So, and was a finalist and got second.
Hey, that's pretty good. I know we're running a little short on time here, but I want to wrap it up. First, I want to thank you for being here with us. Thanks for everybody watching. Keeping up with the museum. As, of course, we're closed for the shutdown. We'll try to stay in touch. And, people follow us on Facebook. I want everybody to share and like this video we've done. We got some more coming up. Of course, we're about to lose A-Day here. Tell folks about A-Day as a player. You know, it's a little different experience now than it was in your time.
Oh, yeah, it's way – look, that was always, you know, that's the last day of spring practice, man, and we just looked forward to it. But it was always great to have – because we had A-Day. Remember, we had A-Day in 80 – I think it was 88 – was in Birmingham. You remember we had to travel up there and had it. And but you know, and the fans would get to go on the field and sign off, and it wasn't like it was organized. It was like, okay, at the end of the game, then everybody just came on the field and we signed autographs and things like that. More, you know, it's more organized. You know, they have a signing day in the fall and all that kind of stuff. But what I loved about A-Day, it was the last practice, you know, and then we had a couple weeks off, and then we had Maymaster, and then, you know, so it was always needless to say, man, I always looked forward. And what was funny was my senior year, Coach Stallings let some of the seniors not have to participate in the spring game. He's like, hey, you know, you've proven yourself. You know, I was a 3-year starter, and I didn't think I would have to – I didn't think I was going to play in the game. So I kind of maybe went out Friday night and had a good time. And I rolled in there Saturday and go, oh, man. And I ended up playing every snap. And I thought, oh, my God. I think I failed Coach Stallings' test. Whatever that test was, I failed it. But, whoo, I can tell you, man, I struggled through that game. Oh, I'll never forget that. But I thought I wasn't going to play. But you just never know.
Roger, we appreciate your time, and you're regular at the museum. We want to see you soon. Folks can come by and hopefully see you there visiting with us very soon. And
Absolutely.
As we wrap up, why don't we leave with you giving folks a little pep talk at home as we try to get through this virus situation. So let you have the last word and give them a little pep talk as we end today's conversation. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate that. Hey, Bama fans, look, all we can do, we control how our attitude is. And I always tell everybody, it's about your attitude, your effort. Hey, your attitude's going to take you out. So have a good attitude, and everything's going to be all right, man. Do what's right. Wash your hands, stay 6 feet away from people, and stay at home.
All right, Roger. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Be safe and roll tide.
Roll Tide. Woo!